let's start off first with our introductions, and then from there we'll follow the agenda. I'm J.D. Young. I'm chairman of Transportation Committee, and I represent the Reeder Church District.
I'm Shannon Taylor, and assistant chair and represent, guess what, Western Carolina,
Western Carolina.
which just last area.
My name is Eric Childs, Supervisor of Transportation, Carolina County Public Schools.
And David Beal, Bowling Green District. I'm George Weaver, Madison District Planning Commissioner.
Alex Long, Town of Fort Roll.
Benita Turner, Reedy Church.
And I'm Leon Hughes, Director of Planning and Community Development for Carolina.
Oh, sorry. I'm Lisa Zeck with Planning and Community Development.
Thank you all. Okay. Let's move forward with the approval of minutes. Last month's meeting minutes. Have everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? You see any changes or recommendations that we need to adhere to?
I would make a recommendation at this time that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly approved by Brother George Weaver that we accept the minutes as they are, and second by Benita Turner. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. The last month's meetings have been accepted. Let's move forward now to our updates. The staff will take charge on that, please.
Okay. So just bear with me for a few minutes here. I just want to give you a brief update on Smart Scale Round 7. This past week we had the Smart Scale training with VDOT, and they went over a lot of the changes to the program. I think what I took most out of that training were the new gating process that's associated with the Smart Scale application process. So now essentially what you have to do is have your pre-applications and then ultimately applications prepared, and they have to meet these gating milestones. And so including those milestones are reviews by the Department of Transportation, certain individuals, and then once you complete a gate, then your application can move on. If your application is not accepted at a gate, then it can essentially be screened out at that point, or it can be given a conditional screening, and then they may offer you some comments and maybe an opportunity to fill in some information that may be required as part of the application to let it go forward if something is forthcoming. If there's a study that's associated with your project, and for whatever reason at that first gate that study is not complete, but you note in there that a study is undergoing, then they may allow that project to move forward. The other thing, one of those the Smart Scale technical guide.
Right here.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you that it's kind of finalized now the technical guide, the Smart Scale technical guide. And what I wanted to show you here is the schedule. And if you like, I can send you all this for some light reading. If you so inclined, I can send you a hard copy. But what I wanted to show you all tonight in particular is the schedule for the Smart Scale process round 6. So where we are right now is in the yellow section on the top of the, I guess, the S curve there. March, we're in the process now of submitting basic information to VDOT staff for them to kind of review and take a look at and give you some pre-screening comments. And then April 1st, the pre-applications are due. And then up through July, your applications will get reviewed and screened, and then ultimately screened out. And then the final submission will be August 1. And so the good thing for us in this round is I think the majority of our projects are probably going to come out of the Route 1 corridor study. And I think that's important because the majority of the information will already be prepared. We're very fortunate in that there's a consultant who's doing this study, so they will have all the sketches done, collected all the data. Essentially, those projects come smart scale ready right out of the pipeline study. And so we're very fortunate for this round. Round 7, we'll probably have to do a little more work unless we get another study. And some projects in there have that level of work done. So I wanted to show you that also. And then, and as a part of this, I just wanted to also, so I have mentioned a number of times the pipeline study, and I just wanted to just kind of show you what is entailed in a pipeline study. And so this is a presentation from the round 2, phase 2 stakeholder meeting. And so just for a recap, the study is looking at projects. We talked about intersections along the corridor. They talked about in that recap meeting safety operations and public input process. Talked about the phase 1 improvements along the corridor there. The intersection improvements got kind of specific to what they were. This particular slide, and you see it's talking about Jericho Road, Lake Caroline Drive, and then 605 Marie and Page Road. I can tell you the Marie and Page Road has already been submitted as a pre-application project to VDOT, so it's in the Smart Scale portal now. And then the analysis that they've done as a part of the study talks about the future functional analysis, turn lane warning analysis along the corridor, the potential improvement alternatives, and the consultant kind of went through these and put out a couple different options for improvements along the corridor. Here's Lake Caroline. This sketch shows potential turning movement improvements on Route 1. And some of this data. So I just wanted you guys to get a sense of, kind of what's involved in a corridor study, because I don't know if many people have the opportunity to see something like this. And Dave, I don't know if you want to put on your VDOT hat for a second and just add anything, or if there's anything to add.
Leon,
Mm-hmm.
is this the data that we provide to VDOT, or is this VDOT
No.
given to us?
This is the consultant working for VDOT who is collecting all of this data.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I said we were fortunate in this round that this is being done by a consultant, and these projects that are shown in the pipeline study can go straight to the Smart Scale portal, essentially Smart Scale ready.
Where can we get a copy of that online?
I don't know if this is online. I will check and see if I can.
Or can you just send us a link?
Yeah, I can send it to you. Like I said, these slides are from a stakeholder meeting. So this was essentially the consultant meeting with the stakeholders and kind of walking through the alternatives.
Well, it's interesting. Very good point, and would like to look at that, and also would like some light reading with your Smart Scale. So if you
Sure.
send
Well,
that
what I'm hopeful, and the reason I bring this up, what I'm hopeful is that the timeline is that this should be done here very shortly. So rather than give you some notes from the study, I hope we can give you a draft of the entire study here.
Okay.
Shortly.
Great.
That's the plan. So, but I just wanted to introduce this to you so you would see the depth and breadth of, a corridor study, and how the consultants are doing it. Like I said, I mention it a lot of times, but I don't think anyone other than maybe say David has any real.
My only comment would be don't underestimate the importance of it. You know, whether it's closing off entrances or crossovers, or recommended improvements, you know, we're not gonna study, VDOT's not gonna study Route 1 along this corridor probably for at least another decade. So this is gonna be the document that we use to identify projects. And if you want a project that's either not on the study or different than what the study recommended, you have a higher hill to climb than just doing what's, you know, asking for what's in the study. So we need to put, everybody needs to put their eyes on that study and make sure it's what we all think is best. Or now's the time to raise your hands and say, no, this isn't what we want. Because that's going to be the guide for the next, you know, at least a decade.
Yeah, that's very true, and that's kind of the point I've been making all along is that, you know, we will, this, like David said, this will be the guide that we can refer to in the future. In one of the last stakeholder meeting, we kind of went over some improvements, and I was able, speaking about the future, you know, I was able to have them add the East Coast Greenway trail. I don't know if you guys are familiar with East Coast Greenway is a trail system that runs essentially from Maine to Florida. And, you know, it's in certain parts of the country along the seaboard. It's already constructed and in. And so it's a private organization essentially that does most of the funding for this. But at one point, when it was in Spotsylvania, it was going to run out, it was going to come down Route 1 and make a left turn and go out 606, and then come into Caroline along 606 on Mud Tavern and Stonewall Jackson, and then go over. It was going to turn out Edge Hill Road. It was going to make the circuitous route through Caroline, and which really, before I got to Caroline, Caroline had commented that, you know, it didn't make a lot of sense for the trail to go that route because it would have some significant impact on a lot of agricultural land, because you're talking a 10-foot wide strip of asphalt that's going to have to be taken along properties. And when you start to look at agricultural property as cropland, you know, 10 feet for, you know, 500 or 600 feet of frontage is a significant amount of impact on productive agricultural land. And so man made a change that, since Carolina objected, that they would bring the path straight down Route 1 to the Spotsylvania line. Part of that was because of the Kalahari project. You now have a destination on Route 1, so it makes sense to have the path come by that destination. And then for Caroline, it makes sense because now we can continue the path along Route 1 through Caroline and not have such a negative impact on agricultural lands in the county. And so the Route 1 corridor study, like David said, it's a document that looks out into the future, so that I asked them to include that path into the Route 1 corridor study.
And what is this called again? What trail?
The East Coast Greenway Trail. And so the consultant was, you know, exploring that and, you know, looking to include that, as well as I asked for some additional pedestrian accommodations at the intersection of Route 1 and Jericho, all the way to Welcome Way, which is essentially down the Luther Glen Road along that commercial corridor there, because there's a significant amount of pedestrian traffic on that in that corridor now. I mean, there are no pedestrian accommodations at all. So, you know, that's important because when future projects come along, you know, we can, if there are rezonings, then we can, you know, look to those developers to participate in making those connections. And I can tell you, developers will always balk if they're the first one there, because they say, well, I'm going to build a sidewalk on my segment of this project, and it's essentially a sidewalk to nowhere, which initially it is. But eventually, as the corridor develops and every little piece of along that corridor is responsible for the segment, then it builds out and it gets completed. And I can tell you the number of places that I saw that occur in Spotsylvania when I got there, there were these sidewalks to nowhere, or there were no sidewalks at all. And we watched these incremental improvements occur. Now you have complete pedestrian connection. So it's a it's a slow process, but it's one that can kind of help us get there. So those are kind of my smart scale update, so to speak. I don't know, David, do you want to add anything about the smart scale?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Let's move to our next segment, which is project ranking discussion. Hughes will lead that up for us too.
The fun part.
Yeah.
So the first question I have, did everybody receive the email with the spreadsheet in it and get a chance to take a look at it? And my next question is, which I think I know the answer to because I asked Lisa and she provided me the answer. Did you all understand how to complete the rankings for the project? I didn't. So, yeah, no, I asked Lisa, I said, Lisa, take a look at this and read this and see if you know how to follow this. And she said, well, kind of, but no. And I think that's the answer for everything. So if you like, I'd be happy to kind of walk through it and show you what was intended there. So I will tell you, I had the dickens of a time trying to get that daggone crash data. VDOT has a wealth of resources out there.
But you can't download it.
Well, one of them just wouldn't work for me. The Pathways to Planning website is a wonderful website, but I caught heck trying to get that thing to work. So,
Question is, can't you get that from the sheriff's office, Carolina County Sheriff's Office?
you can get some of it from the sheriff's office.
Yeah,
You can't
but
get
it's skewed.
the amount of data that is included from VDOT.
It comes out of a database called TREADS, and the sheriff's office and even state police, all those accident reports go into TREADS, and VDOT compiles, just pulls it out of TREADS. It's all the same data.
And it's a lot of data. So let's start back from the beginning. The first page of the sheet is the scoring methodology. So essentially, what you have are the road that, remember we talked about, I'll start from the beginning. We talked about splitting the road projects into two categories, the growth area projects and the rural area projects. And then just what they say. And the reason we did that was so that the higher traffic volume roads wouldn't necessarily be competing with the lower traffic volume roads in the rural areas. And you would end up with a ranking that would have all high growth area projects on it. So we segregated the projects into rural and growth areas. And then what you see here is this is the road classification and each road classification is given a weighted measure. And so whatever that classification of the road is, let's say you have a minor arterial road, it immediately gets a weighted score of 4. So you would essentially put a 4 in there if it was in a growth area. And then as you scroll down, you essentially skip the smart scale projects because they are a separate category unto themselves. And then you have the system performance level, which is level of service and safety. And then at the bottom of the sheet, there's a matrix. So here you have, I said matrix, there's a category. You have the average daily traffic, essentially how many people are using the road. So you can see there, 0 to 400, you get a point, 401 to 1,000, you get 2, and so on and so on and so on. And so if your road falls into one of those categories, so let's say we have a road that's has 1,001 to 3,500 trips per day, it gets a 3. So then you would add just a 3 to the box. Then you have your 5-year crash data, and then if it's a fatality, you get a 5. A severe injury 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. And so there was a map in there included that also had the crash types in there as well. So you can look at the map and pick out what type of crash you were dealing with. Yeah. And then the number of crashes in that same 5-year period also had a weight. So if you had, say, 1 to 5, you had a 1, 6 to 11, you had 2, and so on and so on. And then the charts here, I essentially filled in the data for you, so you wouldn't have to go back and find the data. So we did that part for you. So let's take, say, Farmer Drive. Um, it had a 3 for crash data. It had a 5-year crash severity of a 3, and then the number in parentheses was the that was the. We say I have to go back to the top. Where the number in parentheses was.
I think that was your 1 through 5, wasn't it?
The ADT. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
So it's lines 52 through 57, the 5-year crash data. Was it injuries or not? Visible injuries, severe injury, non-visible, property damage only.
Yeah, and so if you scroll back down to the chart, yeah. So then your total crash score was a 4 because it was essentially the crash severity score plus the 5-year crash data score, and that gave you your total score.
Excuse me, when we say Sparta Road, Jericho Road, are we talking a quarter mile, 10 miles, 5 miles of road? How much of a road section are we talking about?
It is the entire section. So Sparta Road, so Jericho Road was from Route 1 all the way out to Lady Smith Road. Thank you. And then Sparta was from 301 all the way down to the terminus there. I forget what it is. It went just beyond past.
Maybe that's right around Tigner, right? Right around Tigner it changes, I think.
I understand now. If we could make a change on 17 and 301 and take Route 301 from the Caroline Port Royal line all the way to the 301 bridge, instead of having just that micro slice at the intersection,
To the north.
take it from correct to the we'll say the King George line.
Yeah, and I don't think there were any crashes in there.
There are a number of crashes.
Well, it may not have been in the 5-year data, so I'll look at that. But we can certainly do that.
Well, I live there, and I see the police car, or the sheriff car, and the fire truck, and I've seen at least 4 or 5 crashes there, in other parts of that section of that road.
Okay.
Is that all up to the bypass?
Pardon me?
Is that all the way up to the bypass or what
No,
section?
he's talking about Port Royal.
Oh, Port Royal. Okay.
From the light to.
From the light to
From the light to the bridge.
to the bridge.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
light to the bridge. Yeah, we can do
You got
that. Yeah, expand that. That's not a problem. So, Alex, and have you seen rear end crashes or?
Usually they're rear end crashes. Gosh, had a number of them. Folks trying to turn into Randolph's, the seafood restaurant, and a really good one was a BMW and a Mercedes and Land Rover.
Oh, wow.
That was some money.
Probably all with the same insurance company.
Who knows? But some people they just keep plowing through there.
60 miles. What is now? What breaks that?
We're 35 miles an hour, and the fact is, they're really. I don't mean to take up too much time, but it's important. There are really 2 speed limits.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 speed limits. There's what is posted, and there's that which the sheriff's department will write a ticket on. If it's posted at 35, generally the sheriff's department will not write a ticket on anybody going, say, under 10 miles over the limit. So it's posted at 35, but the real speed limit is 45. And we have people sometimes rolling through there at 50 and 60 miles an hour, including tractor trailers.
They blow through my school bus red lights there every day, morning and afternoon.
On this section?
Between the light and the bridge.
Yeah.
We have several stops through there, and they the buses
And,
not even stop.
VDOT was very, very good to work with my wife when she was mayor to get those speed limits brought down. But we'd have to post it at 25. If you really want a 35 mile an hour, you almost have to post it at 25. And that's one of the reasons for the crashes. Unless state of Virginia is going to let us, it would be great if we could get speed cameras. And that'd be fantastic.
So I don't want to digress too far, but I am interested in the comment you made about people passing the buses. I presume you guys have had conversations with law enforcement, the sheriff's department, and
I've had deputies sit out there
Yeah,
and
that's
watch.
gonna be my next question.
And we've had deputies that's just patrolling, and he said there was so many cars that passed the red lights on the school bus, he couldn't go catch them all. It was like 5 or 6 cars. He's like, "Is this happening every day?" I was like, "Every day, morning, and afternoon." He's like, "I got to get more guys down here because I can't go chase 5 or 6 cars because they run red lights."
Can
But
you
it's-
can your cameras capture license plates?
We don't have that yet. We are working with the sheriff's office on a pilot program that will add stop arm cameras to several buses, but we're just in the beginning phases of it to try to catch that. But it'll catch license plates and they can issue tickets.
from the
Basically.
Yep. So, but it's crazy.
Pennsylvania's had a big issue. We had a child hit
Oh yeah,
just a
heard
few
about
months
that.
ago.
Yeah.
Big issue. Just,
Oh yeah. It's nationwide. I mean, it's a problem nationwide, but you know,
Yeah, I'm not sure of the sheriff's resources, but if they may be able to plan a car, just set a car out there
Decoy.
for visual. Yes,
Yep.
for visual.
No, there's some jurisdictions up north, they use those cameras to issue tickets.
Oh yeah.
And speed cameras, again, are a good idea.
Yeah.
And people start paying or maybe get their cars impounded. That might change some attitudes.
yeah, it's a serious issue. That concerns me. Is people running buses.
I think the photo enforcement's only good for red lights and turnout work zones and schools.
Other jurisdictions up north have the speed cameras, especially around school.
Yeah, schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, school zones is hot.
But hopefully soon we'll get them everywhere.
Okay, so let's continue. So you see how these scores are compiled, right? So it's the total of the middle number plus the number in parentheses equals your total crash data score. So we went through and did all that work for you because that was quite a bit of legwork that you guys had to try to do that there. And so then it's the last.
Yep, I'm sorry. The number in parentheses is what?
The number in parentheses is your score from the
Oh, from the average daily traffic?
well, no, number of crashes.
Mm-hmm.
It says 1 to 5 number of crashes.
Okay.
So the number
Okay.
out of the parentheses
I got
is the 5-year crash.
I
So
got you.
on Farmer Drive, there were 3 crashes, so you got a 1.
I got you.
On Jericho, 55 crashes, so you got a 5. Yes.
Yeah.
Your severity score. So your severity score could be pretty high based on the type of crash you had. If you had 3 or 4 fatalities, then immediately you got 15 points on the road, and so that's why those numbers are elevated, just depending on how severe your crash is. So then you can go over to click on the road projects tab. Yeah, you can do rural roads. Yeah. And so you can take a sheet and for each road, go through and add the fill in the blanks, the numbers of the scores, and then come over to this sheet and total score, write in the total score, and then your ranking, whatever the highest ranking is, you just put it in there. So if let's say the turn lane at the landfill was number 1, although it's the bottom, it could still be the highest ranked project, depending on whatever its total score is. And then on this sheet, you also have the project description, You also have the ADT number on there. You also have the level of service. You also have a description of the surrounding land uses in that area. And then some notes on the side to kind of give you some description of the particular project. So, does that help kind of clarify how they use the methodology?
So score from here,
Transfer.
transfers here.
Yes. Yeah. So you have to do essentially a scoring sheet for each road segment, and then transfer those numbers from that sheet onto the sheet.
And the smart scale money is accessing one section of money, and these projects are gonna access what
Other pots of money,
other pots?
be it revenue sharing, rural addition. You may have something might come off of this list and get it put into the smart scale, especially with the core. If you go to the growth area projects, and yeah, so the turn lanes at Lake Caroline, turn lanes at Gatewood. Those projects could end up in the smart scale ranking because they are going to be identified in the Route 1 corridor study. I think we added Gatewood Lane. I think that was a discussion in the last meeting about Gatewood Road and some crash numbers there. So I think it got added into this quarter study. I have to check that to be sure. But
Is that just north of Laser Village?
it is. It is.
We on the, I'm sorry. The crash numbers, like the 55 for Jericho and 61 for Sparta Road, that's the total number of crashes. I just wonder if we shouldn't, like do that per mile or something to try to equalize it.
You think
Come up
it's
with the
skewed
crash because of the crash
total?
rate. Yeah, like that Alex's point, like if it's a 10, 15 mile long road, you have more opportunity for crashes than if it's 5 miles. So if when you look at the projects, and I guess I'm thinking from a smart scale perspective, when you're doing a cost benefit, you know, if you're solving more crashes but at a higher cost, or when it's the same, there's a lower number of crashes at a lesser cost. So it might be good to equalize that out with the crash rate instead of just a pure number.
We're talking about crashes per mile.
Maybe crashes per mile.
Okay.
Or crashes, I mean, you can get into the weeds with it, but crashes per vehicle mile traveled. So then you look at the number of vehicles on the road, how many miles are they traveling, and how many crashes are there. So that tends to equalize the volume of traffic, the length of the road, and the number of crashes.
Okay.
And VDOT has, I mean, we can get that one.
Can I
Okay.
put that together? So that makes a big difference. When you describe it just as crashes per mile, I understand. But when you take all the individual pieces and put them together for that mile, it makes a big difference.
We might, a different road might jump out.
Yeah, right, agreed.
Okay.
That's very smart.
All right.
Are we talking about me?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. That's good. Any other questions or thoughts, suggestions? Do you have any?
I had one looking over the, I guess the land use, and we have Jericho labeled as like family and institutional.
Yes.
And I guess, I don't know why down there the high school, Lake Caroline's labeled as high school. Turn lane Lake Caroline. Or is mine?
back to the page that you read.
The rural road projects. Turn lane at high school. Mine is showing up different, probably because I'm opening up on the Mac.
It's turn lane at high school.
Oh, so the institution, I don't know, like, so in my mind, I think high school, you're gonna have a lot of younger drivers, and that's pretty important. The Jericho Road is also a high school.
Yes.
So maybe labeling that also as high school too, because there are a lot of high school drivers. I mean, not as many as Caroline High School, but you have those.
Yeah, and I think I was probably thinking of the school, the Carmel School, when we did institutional. So
Yeah, so it is a high school
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
My daughter's has had her license for 2 weeks. Goes there. So I think I'm like, oh my gosh. And there are quite a few accidents there on Jericho, and it is.
Stay out of that neighborhood for a while.
It is. Oh, don't worry. Her car already got hit in the parking lot of
oh, there you go.
Wow.
the event center, Meadow Event Center.
Mhm.
So it's already in the body shop. 2 weeks hit and run.
Oh,
She was working.
that's crazy.
But yeah, no. So I'm like thinking in my head that like, okay, we have a lot of young drivers. They got sporting events. They've got
Right.
turning out of there, staying on the road,
Yeah. Jericho Road is famous for speeding
speeding.
because a lot of it's straight. And it's another road where, believe it or not, we have a lot of red light.
Oh, they blow that school zone like
They
it
blow
doesn't
that
even
school
exist
zone,
there. 'Cause
yeah.
you can't
They
even see
did,
the
they-
school. That school zone's
Straight through.
Okay. We'll make that change.
yeah.
Any other-
That doesn't mean anybody's gonna do anything.
Any other thoughts on the process? I want to keep this simple. I didn't want to, to make it too difficult.
It's a good first step.
Mhm.
It's a big one.
What does on the project description rural rustic mean?
So that is a category of program to bring the road into the system. Would that be a good description for that?
No, that's rural addition.
It's a gravel.
Rural rustic is an existing gravel road that's already in the state system, like Durrett Road was.
Okay.
Durrett's paving.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So Durrett Road used to be a gravel road that went Ladysmith River,
Mhm.
Ladysmith Village to South River to wherever. And then we came in and hard surfaced it. So that was hard surfaced under the rural rustic program. The county gets a certain amount of state funding every year in the secondary 6-year plan based on how many gravel roads they still have left. And they get unpaved road funds, and those funds can only be used to hard surface existing state maintained gravel roads. We don't take in any more gravel roads to be maintained by the state. We're trying to get rid of all of them.
Okay.
So we're trying to pave them all out. So that's what that.
That's what we want done on those. Okay.
And speaking of that, so when we make the changes that we talked about, there will be an additional. Well, hang on. Let me ask you all's thought. So a road, Mudville
Tavern.
No, not Montana. Mudville Road
CDOT.
has come up. Yeah, it's CDOT. A portion of it is in the system now, and then it stops. State maintenance ends, and then there's it's a very short segment. Maybe I think it's 3/10 of a mile. I think it's that much.
Something like that, yeah. At the end at the power lines.
Yeah.
Right near the power lines. Where
That
it ends.
could probably be, it's dirt. It could be used for rural addition. So if the committee is amenable to adding that road onto the list, then we can add it to the list and, get it ranked as well.
I'll make a motion to add it to the list.
A second.
Okay.
As we move into discussion.
Yeah.
And there are a ton of roads throughout the county that are gravel that aren't in the state system. I think they should all be on the list. And then we can weight them based on how many people they serve. Does this serve one house, 2 houses? Does it serve a dozen houses? You can kind of prioritize. Is it 100 feet of road or is it half a mile of road? What's the cost versus how many people does it serve? Because the rural additions they can use the telepes in the secondary 6-year plan. Otherwise, it's local money. They can't use the unpaid road funds. So the telepes are gonna have a lot of competition for all these projects.
Well,
Okay, so
excuse me, one thing, first I want to make a disclosure on Caroline Street. I'm a property on Caroline Street. But you have Neighborhood Street, Fort Royal. If you could take out neighborhood and put federal refuge, that's the only access to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife
Oh, okay.
Service. It's a 125-acre refuge. They have about 2.5 miles of trails. Somebody can get a meal in Fort Royal and then take a walk through that wildlife refuge. It has 1/4 mile of frontage on the river and 2/3 of frontage on a tidal creek. If you're going Baltimore to Richmond, it's a great place to stop, stretch your legs, and it's really a great place to walk through. It really is. There are viewing stands to look at the creek and wildlife or the river. You need to go over there and look at it. Really do.
okay, guys. Well, we have a motion on the floor, so.
Well, can we have more discussion?
I was gonna ask,
I'm sorry.
are we gonna rescind it or modify it? But more discussion.
Well, I like David's idea, and my question was, do we want to create a separate category for just the unpaid roads?
Did I make the motion? Can I withdraw the motion? And
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Mr. Chair, can I withdraw that motion? You seconded it, you make? Okay.
Yes, that motion
Withdraw
has
it,
been
and
withdrawn.
then we can formulate something along what Mr. Beal said in terms of.
Owners, does
Yes.
the planning office have the ability to pull a list of gravel roads? You know, both, I mean, VDOT can give you the ones the state maintains, but do we have a list like through 911 of private roads or?
No, we
How about the transportation?
Yeah.
We have some that we use. We don't service a lot of state maintained gravel roads. Only Rattle Trap and Jeter Road off of Sparta Road. Those are the main ones that we use, that we have kids on that we go pick
I
up.
don't think as a planning commissioner, you would be able to do that. You have to burden the county and the planning department to come through and say, here's all the gravel roads we could find.
These have been identified, yeah.
Because we're not gonna walk around and find all these gravel roads.
If I might, on the subject, there's some people that like the gravel. And perhaps it could be that a communication goes out to those who have gravel roads, and these are like state maintained gravel roads, that if you want it paved, then please bring your desire forward to Caroline County, because not everybody wants a gravel road paved.
Yes, you're right.
The state maintained ones will eventually be paid because the state is dedicating that unpaid road funds
Have to be done.
and they can only be spent on paved and gravel roads. So eventually you're gonna catch them all. It may take decades, but eventually it's catch them all.
Eventually.
It's the rural additions. And the rural additions usually have a lot of hair on them because a lot of times the right of way is not dedicated. You might have conflicts with utilities and all those things have to be resolved. And the property owner either has, if they're not willing to dedicate, you're gonna have to condemn it or, convince them, buy it. The rural additions are tough.
But the state basically has mandated that you can take all the gravel roads and it must be blacktop. Is that correct?
They're providing funding to do it, yeah.
Just wanna make sure I was correct.
And to David's point, those issues that he talked about ultimately drive up the cost. So when you start ranking those roads and you start looking at it may be a very short segment of a road, but let's say there's no right of way available, and then you got to go acquire the right of way. So now all of a sudden,
They're typically private subdivisions.
Right.
Somebody did a subdivision years ago, they pushed in a driveway and then built some houses, and then decades go by and people are like, hey, nobody maintains this road, we don't have a maintenance agreement, we don't have an HOA.
Right.
How do we get our road into the system? Like, well, it's kind of tough. And then if you're gonna go in there and spend public funds to build a state road, and improve all these property values on this existing gravel path, you know, there's things to think about in there. You're only benefiting a few people on some.
That's very true. And I can see from experience, they can be tough nut to crack.
We had a lot of those in the county with the family subdivisions.
Yes.
When you start splitting these things up and somebody says, well, how come you have to go this far before you can do a road? Well, that's because that's what the rules and regulations say. So I can look at you all the time and say, well, what do you say? You go, George, we can't go from there to there. We can go from here to there, but we can't go that way right now. We don't have the rules and regulations to do that. And that's been a problem for a long time, especially in the subdivisions. It's been forever.
Well, I would tell you that the situation you described is what happened on Mudville. We were able to, fortunately, find a good something was done in '71. A decent subdivision plat. It identifies right of way and it identifies, I think it's 50 feet. It's so old, it's really hard to read, but we're trying to get it enhanced so we can truly determine. I think it's a 50-foot right of way. But in that scenario, the road was dedicated and the lots were created off that right of way. So, you know, it looks like there's sufficient right of way to possibly do it now. That's a preliminary investigation.
Well, we had a lot of issues in Caroline County where if you had a piece of land, let's say it was 20 acres, and you wanted to put 4 houses in there, we had to put in a truly state road. I mean, that's the way our regulations in Caroline County were written. So we had to put a total gravel road, paved road, not a gravel, paved road with 4 or 5 houses. It's like the regular developers said, no, we're not gonna do that. We can't afford to do that. What am I gonna tell the person over there? The piece of land that was worth $20,000 for us to put the road in, it's not worth $100,000. And that's what happened. A lot of subdivisions just stopped because of that kind of situation. So.
I would suggest we just start putting a list together of rural addition requests. As funding becomes available for rural additions, we prioritize them as best we can. At least we'll have a list.
Now, who would be responsible for getting that list?
I think each one of us, as we're
Each.
contacted or know about it, we'll come to the meeting and say, hey, I'd like to add whatever route to our list. And maybe we could have a spreadsheet that just says length of the road, how many people, how many houses or parcels it serves. You know, maybe some basic information about it. You know, so it would be more than just a road name to people who weren't familiar with it.
Well, the Port Royal supervisor, my wife, brought up Mudville.
Okay. Yeah, and so originally, we had talked about having at least 2 people per district. So are you saying that each person in here should, all right, so like Rita Church, Bonita and I and Rita Church, so she would be responsible for a portion, looking for roads, and I would be responsible for the other.
Yeah, or as you are in your community,
in the community.
you know,
Okay.
somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you get our road into the VDOT system? What do I do about maintenance? Or this thing's a mud pit. Why won't the county come fix my road?
Sure.
You know, then you can say, well, county doesn't actually maintain roads. You're responsible for your road because it's not maintained by VDOT, but we can put it on a list and, you know, prioritize with all the other ones in the county. You know, like.
Okay.
The other thing I throw out there is there's a policy issue, and I think it's probably going to have to be addressed at some point. Is, you know, some of these subdivisions, you know, people were created with the intent that they'd be private roads, and because of change in ownership over the years, now you have new owners, and then you start to get these requests. I want my road in the system, and so I think the policy question is, you know, should taxpayer dollars go to fund roads and bring them into the system where people purchase on private roads, knowing that they were private roads, knowing that there had to be some maintenance involved, and now they're going to approach the county and say, hey, can you help us, you know, build this road? should they have any skin in the game? You know, is that, you know, a requirement that they dedicate the right of way, or get everybody to dedicate the right of way, or they, you know, should they put some funding in? I mean, that's just something to think about because, you know, oftentimes you have, for whatever reason, owners who've been there for a while, and they knowingly purchased property on a private road, and now they're coming to the county and saying, hey, help us bring this road into the system. Should they have any financial, you know, participation in the process? Yeah.
It may be easier for me to develop that list. It'd be a bit of an effort, but I've got a map that makes a black line for all the VDOT roads and a green line for all the private roads. So I mean, we could look at an area and say, hey, here are all your green lines. But
That would help.
I could pull that up, but
Yeah.
just an example of what you're talking about. Just I've got friends that live off of Farmer Drive, off of Deepwood Avenue, and that's a well-maintained gravel road. They have an HOA. All of the houses pay, you know, a couple $100 a year or whatever, pitch in for gravel and maintain the roads. But right next to it is Thomas Drive, and Thomas Drive serves about, you know, half a dozen houses and maybe 8, I don't know, and nobody maintains Thomas Drive. You know, so it's just more like a dirt driveway. But I've gotten requests for both, you know, people in the subdivision off of Deepwood say, hey, how do we get our road in the VDOT system? And then people from Thomas Drive say, hey, how do I get my road? You know, so they're different costs to do both because of the way each one's maintained. One has a HOA set up to where if they're really serious about it, and we say, hey, you can do it, but you got to raise 25% of the cost or 60% of the cost or whatever, they could up their HOA fees in a board meeting and be ready to go in a few years or whatever they decide. Where Thomas Drive has no organization, you know, it'd be much more difficult. It's a difficult thing.
You know, Brother Bill, what are the roads called between a paved road and the gravel road? Where you have like, I don't know if you call it substrate or something, whatever it is. Good example, Route 730, Fall Hole Road, Fall Hole Drive. Are you familiar with it? Okay.
Are you talking about surface treatment?
It's off Oxford, yeah.
Is it surface treatment?
Well, maybe it's surface.
Is it hard?
It is hard, yes. But it used to be gravel, but it's hard now, but it's not paved.
Okay, so what we call paved is hard. So
Okay.
paved might be, when you're thinking paved, you're thinking
Blacktop.
plant mix asphalt
Yes.
goes down out of a pavement.
Right.
When we say paved, we're saying it could be plant mix asphalt, could be what we call surface treatment, or you might hear tar and gravel or tar and chip. You know, and that's a liquid asphalt that goes down with a real fine stone over top. Another way of liquid asphalt and real fine. So it's just surface treatment. You're just putting a crust on top of the stone.
Right. I mean, do you have a lot of those in the county?
Yeah, majority of the roads in the county. Well, you're only going to get plant mix on like 301, Route 1, and 207. You'll get plant mix there, and then you'll get plant mix where we have a structural problem. So when we have a surface treatment road that's falling apart, we'll come back with plant mix and give it some structure, some pavement structure, so it doesn't, you know, fall apart.
Okay.
Like Golensville, I think Golensville got some. We may have just done some patching. Yeah. But Golensville a few years ago was falling apart just because of the increase in traffic volume. Right. And we came in there, put some plant mix asphalt. You did. We may have surface treated over top of the plant mix as well. Yep. There are a few different methods to hard surface, but generally when VDOT says it's a paved road, they're saying the surface is hard.
Okay.
Anything but gravel. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of all your 600 routes are surface treatment.
Mm-hmm. So Dave, before you do a lot of research, Lisa was just mentioning that we may have a file.
We used to keep a list of people, can you pave my road, but if a road has 3 houses on it, we name it. Now, if it doesn't have a VDOT route number, then it's a private road. So can't we pull it from GIS, just that one?
Private roads?
Yeah. So we could probably
Should be there.
pull it, because if it doesn't have a name, you're not really, I mean, that means there's less than 3 houses on it, so maybe it wouldn't be something you'd want to consider. Anyway, So that would give you somewhat of a list. I would think that we could do that. Maybe quicker than David going through a map. I'll look to see if we still have a list hanging around, but maybe that's the way
So
to
Dave,
start with your list.
does your list have all private roads on it, or all roads that are not treated, or roads with a route?
It has some, I don't know if it has all.
Okay.
I don't know what the criteria was, it's a GIS database, so it may be pulling the same information in the county.
Yeah,
I was thinking if it wasn't named, we wouldn't want, I mean, if it's not named, it doesn't have 3 homes, then maybe that wouldn't, at that point, you wouldn't want to consider it anyway, if it's not serving enough homes. So, once we've named it,
And I think the other thing is to be cautious about when you start looking at this list is that we include all these private roads. The list is huge, and like Alex, the point Alex made earlier, some people want to live on a private road, so you're not gonna go in and pave every single one of these roads, but some people just don't want it to be paved. But I was wondering if we could look and see how many of these roads have a segment weight portion or have a route number.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, the rural additions don't happen until enough people make enough noise to meet whatever criteria the county has for spending.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good start. Let's look at the list, and then maybe we can at some point develop a criteria. And I think, like I said, I think there's a policy question here that probably ultimately has to go to the board and have the board weigh in on. If we want to develop a criteria, because like I said, like David said, you're gonna have these very varying levels of these roads. Those that have been well maintained over the years, it might not take much to get done, and then those there's been very little work done on them, and they could take a lot. Like the Thompson scenario, who knows what it would take to do that? You might have lot lines coming to the middle of that 50-foot easement, and then you have a bunch of right of way, and next thing you know, it cost balloon significantly. So
Cheaper to build a new road.
yeah.
Question.
Mhm.
Regarding the scoring, is cost benefit a factor in the scoring at all? Like, when you start listing, is that going to be a factor in the score? Not just the rules, but just in general.
I think ultimately when we get a ranking and we can start putting some numbers on there, when it comes down to it is going to play a part in it, because if you get, let's say, we have 2 projects on the list, and one project may have a higher priority, but costs a lot, and we have a pot of money available that could fix a road that has a lesser priority, then we could just go ahead and fix that road. So it will play a factor. I think we're also going to have some cost estimate done on some of these. So, and I'm hopeful maybe we get some assistance from GWRC, and I think there's some estimating tools in the VDOT database I think can be used as well. I think if you haven't had a chance to go play around the VDOT website, just go out there, man. I mean, they have a lot of resources on this stuff.
You can get lost on it.
Yeah, you certainly can. So just you want to spend, before you know it, 2 hours looking at the VDOT website.
Fall down the hole and not get back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a lot of,
And I think they just redid their website, so
Yeah.
it's even easier to navigate.
There are a lot of
Right.
broken links too, so sometimes you have to work a little harder to find what you.
yeah, there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, it took me a while to find her.
Okay.
I have one more question of the crash scoring.
Mhm.
And I guess it would have to be with, are any of these, because it just shows us a crash, it's not necessarily showing us, are any of these with a school bus so that your crash is maybe more significant because you have a school bus? Any of these, are any of these areas stick out as they've either been near misses just because the bus drivers are so good, or we've had, crashes in any area more particular than another one that maybe is just showing up as a crash. And
That's right.
even if the kids are not hurt, I mean, that's still, if it's happened more than once, maybe that's something to look at. Is it a shoulder issue or whatnot? Like, you know.
Well, we'll tell you there in the database, like on the Pathways to Planning site, if you click on a crash, it gives you information,
Okay.
a lot of information actually about the particular crash.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we could identify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess just as a, my parents or my kids don't ride the bus, but as a parent, as somebody thinking like, okay, if we've had more than one school bus crash on this certain road, then that's maybe something I really want to pay attention to. Like, what is the problem there? Yeah.
Exactly.
We need to keep our kids safe and our bus drivers, safe.
Right. Last week on Sparta Road, or not last week, but last meeting, I was on the way here, and we had a bus get sideswiped by a tractor trailer on Sparta Road. So it is interesting to know in that number if there are any buses. Now I would know, but I don't know if that's it's good to know if that's included.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So the data is there, but these are just raw numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't go in. The only thing that segregates these numbers are the severity of the crash.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like I said, if you, I know on the Pathways to Planning site, if you click on a crash, it will give you all kinds of data: driver age, what happened, how many vehicles were involved. Then there's another data set that has even more accident data. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of accident data out there. So that could be found.
I'm pretty sure the DREADS database could be queried for dispatches that are on school buses, and it would spit out those.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, the Pathways for Planning website is a great tool, but I just couldn't get it to work. I mean, it's got a query tool, and I just struggled. I don't know, particular days that I was trying to use it if it was server issues, but it was those days it was just really slow, and at time, I got kicked out a couple of times, and it was a real tough site those couple of days. But the information is there, like I said, it allows you to segregate. And what's so funny is when Cassie from the principal's office, she called me when we did a tutorial one day, and she walked me through it. It worked like a charm. And then I go back to use it, and I was just having all kinds of issues. I was all excited, and I go back the next day, and it's like the thing wouldn't work. But it's there. There's a lot of information. Like this, you can query, you can do segments, you can put in the segments of the road and look at. Notice on Jericho Road, there are a couple of segments where if you look at the crashes, they are kind of clustered. You can see where there's a problem. Over the 5-year period, the 10-year period. I was shocked that there are a couple of fatalities. In the 10-year, not in the 5. I don't think they've been built in the last 5 years. I think in the 10-year period, there were 2 fatalities on Jericho Road. Mm-hmm. And that first curve,
yep.
After you come off around 1. Which, that's, to me, in 10 years, that's a high number.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a sharp. Well, VDOT straightened that out, but yeah, that was a sharp curve. Even before. It's still a tough.
Yeah, it's got a bank in it. It goes.
Yeah. And I know one of those crashes had just ice. Yeah, it was snow, weather related. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know if both of them were now. Yeah, but I remember.
Yeah, the pine tree sits right off
right there at it.
Yeah.
So. It must be on this big tree right at the curve.
Okay. Any other thoughts? So what I'll do is I'll make the adjustments you all talked about, and then I'll resend this out. And if you guys have good explanation on that, then pull it out and send it back, and I'll compile all the data and give you guys a list.
When do you want to send back that?
Let's see. Today is the 6th. Is the 8th too much?
No problem, boss.
Let's see. I would say by the 20th or so, because then that'll hopefully give us enough time to try to get it compiled and done in time for the next meeting.
Okay.
So should we email the Excel, or do you want it in PDF or fax?
I don't know, if it's easier to just send it Excel, that's fine. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and, ask questions. I mean, I don't want to just put you out here and say, go ahead and, give me a call and we'll walk through it and, give you as much explanation as you need, so. Don't be shy about calling. I wish, more people pick up the phone and call and ask, questions so we can disseminate good information. That was all I have on it. There's nothing else, Mr. Chair.
Let's move down to the next agenda. Next piece on the agenda is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business?
There is. So at the last meeting, Mr. Long asked for a present. And so you all have a present. This is the Chapter 9 of the Caroline County Comprehensive Plan. It is the transportation section. And the GWRC put this together for us, did a lot of work, and provided this now. And so as we are looking at updating the comp plan, this is one section that they've already done. I will tell you, because of changes in policy with smart scales, some of the information on pages 57 and through 59 will probably have to be amended because of the recent policy changes that were made to the smart scale program. So that's, it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of amending it to reflect what was just adopted by the CTB and the policy changes there. But take a look at it. Add any thoughts. If there's a section that there's some information that you think should be included is not here, don't be shy about adding. Okay. I'd like to get as comprehensive document as I possibly can. Hopeful that we'll embark on a comprehensive plan, a full comprehensive plan update in the near future. And this is certainly one chapter that is essentially pretty much done, and we can have the transportation committee input on it and tweak it and get it submitted, and then tackle the rest of it. I will tell you about my plan right now is probably to seek consulting services to assist with the updated comp plan. But we'll see how the money flows. But it needs to be done, because if you have read our current comp plan, it had a 30-year horizon, and that 30-year horizon is fastly approaching. And so it's now time to start preparing to update it and move along. I would say if you look at the current plan, you'll see a lot of outdated statistical information in there, which tells you how how long ago the document was produced and been updated in different sections at different times. But it's a really good document still. I think it lays out a very good plan for Carolina, and it might be just a matter of updating. Say you're going to do the comp plan, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to rewrite the entire thing, but of course there are going to be some tweaks, because since 2006, development patterns have changed, things have happened, and so you just need to reflect the current status in the county and where things are going. And for the most part, I'll say the county is developing in accordance to that plan, which is a great thing. I think that's commendable. There are not a lot of communities that can say they had a comp plan around for that many years and can look at it and say, oh, the community is developing how people envision. And so I think the next step is the next big step is to get the document updated and then update our zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance to help implement the vision that the citizens put forth in the plan. So, I struggle every day with our current zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, because they're just, that
Okay.
old, so
Mhm.
that's a discussion for another day.
Any other unfinished business? And none, we'll move to any new business.
I would add one thing. Mr. Long did provide me a copy of the resolution that the town of Fort Royal adopted back in 2019 regarding a bypass in the town of Fort Royal. And so at some point in the future, Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring this forward for discussion. The committee and I will make copies of it and get it disseminated to the committee so everybody can have a copy of it and understand it. He just gave it to me tonight, so I haven't even had a chance to look at it and see what's in it. But
We have copies. I mean, if you want to make it electronic, send it to us too, that way.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Oh, you gave it up to everybody else?
Mhm.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
He cut down some few trees.
More trees.
Yeah.
So that does lead me to a question. Is there a preference for how you all want to receive materials? Because we can do a lot of stuff electronically and not have a library of hard copies. So is there a preference in the committee at this point?
I like hard copy and
Okay.
old fashioned, I like.
Yeah, I was gonna say both, if you could, yeah.
Go.
Yeah, I'm a Mac user, so usually getting county government stuff, it doesn't translate well, so the hard copy is.
Okay. All right.
We don't feel sorry for you, so.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, if we could do both, that would help.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Any other new business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Been properly, we have a motion by
Oh, excuse me,
Alex.
welcome our new member here.
She's not new.
This is my second year.
Oh, your second meeting. Oh, gee,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm
But,
sorry.
Yeah, but Mr. Childs, I think this is your first. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, wow. I knew we had a new member somewhere.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and we'll have at least I know one other new member in the near future as well. So it's gonna be
Anyway. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So it's been motion to adjourn and properly second by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right.